Live from London, this is Global Business.
Hello, welcome to the programme. I'm Jamie Owen.
And I'm Juliet Mann. Our top stories. Russia and the United States agree on more talks to end the conflict in Ukraine and potential economic cooperation after meeting in Saudi Arabia.
Our other headlines, it's Europe's biggest economy and investors in Germany show some signs of optimism, but so much hangs on this weekend's election.
How artificial intelligence could turbocharge China's economy, the very real opportunities beyond the success of DeepSeek.
And new formats, new players and more teams, how NBA is reinventing itself for a new audience around the world.
The United States and Russia have agreed to examine economic potential between the two countries following the conflict in Ukraine.
Diplomats from both countries, including US Secretary of State Marco Rubio and Russia's Foreign Minister Sergei Lavrov, met in Saudi Arabia. Lavrov said there was a great interest in removing artificial obstacles to economic development, while both countries agreed to push towards peace.
Our correspondent Yasser Hakim is in Riyadh. Good to see you, Yasser. So how much real progress was made with these talks?
Thank you, Juliet. Well, while they have not set a date for a summit between US President Donald Trump and Russian President Vladimir Putin, which everyone was waiting to know when they will meet, but they said it will not take not take place soon. Maybe at least a week or two, but there was progress. They described the meetings as upbeat and positive. The U.S. Secretary of State said that we're working to achieve a fair and enduring peace in Ukraine, and that both of them have managed to outline several stages going forward. They said that, first of all, they are going to establish a mechanism whereby they will have they will resume diplomatic and economic ties, and this might include as well relieving or cancelling the economic sanctions by the U.S., and obviously it will try to engage Europe as well against Russia. We will see also an appointment of a high-level delegation from both sides that will be working together to outline or map out a peace process for the war in Ukraine. They will work also on all files globally, and we're talking about the geopolitical issues between both countries globally, not just in Ukraine. They will also this delegation will also work on it. And finally, they said they will engage together in further meetings, because one meeting or one phone call is not enough to solve these sticking issues. Now, Sergei Lavrov, on the other hand, in his press conference said it was important because they not just listened to each other, but they heard each other, and that the U.S. is now aware of the stance of Russia. And when he said so, he said that there are several sticking points that he mentioned in the meetings. First of all, that Russia refuses that Ukraine become a NATO member, although it agrees that Ukraine can be an EU member. Secondly, that Russia refuses any more arming of Ukraine's army. So Russia will not stop the war until there is no more arming of Ukraine military, as well as that Russia wants the economic sanctions to be removed. So those are three issues that Russia wants to be done before a peace process can be achieved. Back to you.
Yasser Hakim in Riyadh, thank you very much for that update.
Ukraine's President Volodymyr Zelensky has warned again that his country will not recognise any peace deals made without Kyiv's participation. Let's talk to our correspondent, Stuart Smith. Stuart, President Zelensky has been speaking in Turkey with President Erdogan. What more has he been saying?
Yeah, emphasising again that a decision about Ukraine without Ukraine's involvement is not one that Kiev is going to accept. And for the first time, listing Turkey as one of the nations that he would like input from in any peace deal, saying that the war in Ukraine affects the whole region, and therefore countries like Turkey should be included along with the European Union, the United Kingdom, and of course the United States. He reiterated that if indeed, as seems the case, membership for Ukraine will not be granted due to US opposition as well as some European countries too, then there must be a willingness to deploy a peacekeeping force in the country after any post-war ceasefire. He said that that should also include American troops, something that the United States has ruled out. And regardless, we heard afterwards from the Russian Foreign Minister Sergei Lavrov that any European or American contingent under any banner, whether it's EU, NATO or individual force, would not be seen as legitimate if those troops are from NATO countries. The Ukrainian president implied that he's still open to doing a deal with Washington on security guarantees. He wants something from the United States that would guarantee Ukrainian security, and to that end, the so-called security for minerals deal is still open. It would have the United States, at least in its first draft form, able to access 50% of the profits of Ukrainian mineral reserves, oil and gas, in order for security. But Kiev has not yet seen what Washington is willing to put up in return for that substantial hundreds of billions of dollars worth of resources that the United States says it wants in return for those security guarantees. He's cancelled his trip to Saudi Arabia on Wednesday, saying he wants to focus on the United States official delegation arriving here on Thursday, when General Keith Kellogg, President Trump's Ukraine envoy, will be in Kiev, and he'll also be meeting with frontline troops.
Stuart, thank you for that. Our correspondent Stuart Smith in Ukraine. Investors in Germany are showing some signs of optimism. According to the latest data, morale improved at the fastest rate in 2 years in February, amid hopes the economy will pick up after Sunday's election. The general outlook remains rather weak, though. Two major research bodies have forecast a third year of economic contraction in 2025.
With the German election on the horizons, let's look at some of the key concerns for voters. 37% of voters questioned said immigration was one of the most important issues. Germany is one of the most popular destinations for immigrants in the world. In 2023, it attracted almost 2 million people, including 334,000 asylum seekers. 34% of voters said it's the economy, that's the big issue. Now, once a financial powerhouse, Germany's been described as the sick man of Europe by some commentators. GDP is expected to contract this year, which would mean 3 years of decline. The financial slump has been fueled by the energy crisis sparked by the conflict in Ukraine, the huge car industry struggling to transition to electric vehicles quick enough, and increasing competition from China. The country also faces a severe skilled labour shortage, and the unemployment rate has risen to its highest level in almost a decade. And what about the green transition? 13% of voters mentioned environmental and climate protection as an important issue. Germany's made significant progress on the expansion of renewable energies, but still not enough to reach targets. Let's speak to our correspondent, Trent Murray, who's in Berlin. Good to see you, Trent. So investor morale seems to be up, but well, if we look at the big picture, the economy's not doing well, is it?
Yeah, that's right. Look, there's a little bit to unpack here. It's interesting you mentioned the sick man of Europe, because I recall the former finance minister here saying 6 months ago that Germany wasn't the sick man of Europe, it was just the tired man of Europe in need of a cup of coffee. And according to this data, maybe the caffeine is just starting to hit. This is the fastest rate of investor morale rise since in 2 years, as you say. The official numbers show the economic sentiment index rising to 26 points, down from 10.3 points the months prior. Now, what the economic, economists, I should say, that have conducted this survey is saying is that it is that rising optimism that is being caused from the fact that there is expectations that the kind of calamity we have seen in German politics in the past 6 months, that rapid fall of the government, we now may be starting to exit that, and there is hopes of a new government forming with a little bit more stability, which could sort of assist the kind of bedrock of confidence in the German economy. Now, this follows two quite other promising pieces of economic data, including falling inflation numbers in recent weeks, also increased manufacturing orders. But that is kind of where the good news ends, because more broadly on a macro level, two of the country's most major economic think tanks are still predicting that this year we'll see the German economy contract for a third year in a row. Really, there are fears of a recession here. If there is to be another third year in a row, that would be the worst consecutive economic period Germany has experienced since the post-war period.
Trent, hasn't there also been some data out on the property sector? What does that tell us?
Yeah, very interesting data coming out of the property sector today showing that it is facing some real difficulties. What we have seen is the number of residential building permits granted in the country fall to their lowest level since 2010. So in other words, construction here really grinding to a 15-year low. The data shows that there was 17% fewer permits issued this year when compared to last year, and probably more concerning, the German Property Federation says that this year they're expecting a 45% drop when compared to 2023. So in other words, there's just not a lot of construction happening or building permits being granted in the residential sector, which is causing problems in the housing market, because in a number of big cities, Berlin, Munich, Frankfurt, there are housing shortages. And so obviously right now there are some issues in that sector. What the experts are saying is that it's red tape, high construction costs and also high interest rates, which are causing all of this. But certainly that data, I think, will make for some troubling reading, particularly for many first home buyers who are struggling to get on the property ladder amongst a lack of new builds. That data suggests that there is a lot of work to do to get spades and shovels back into the ground and that construction work happening again.
Trent Murray in Berlin, thank you very much.
You're watching CGTN. Still ahead, the very real opportunity of artificial intelligence and how it could be transformational for China.
Chinese paper cutting, known as jianzhe, is thought to have originated during the 6th century CE. However, some believe that its history could be traced back further. Usually the artworks are made of red paper, as the colour red is associated with festivities and luck in Chinese culture. Cut paper artwork is used as a way of decorating doors and windows during festivals such as Chinese New Year and weddings, symbolising good wishes and happiness. The common tools used in Chinese paper cutting are scissors or an engraving knife. Yin and Yang are the two main techniques used in paper cutting. Yin refers to the process of cutting out a defined shape, whereas Yang refers to cutting out the negative space around that shape. Works are mainly divided into southern and northern styles. The southern style utilises fine and precise cuts to create intricate lace-like patterns, showcasing themes from nature such as plants and animals. The northern style is known for its exaggerated shapes and vigorous designs, emphasising strong lines, symmetry and contrast, and often features themes from Chinese mythology and historical figures. Today, paper cutting is one of the most popular folk arts in China.
Hello, welcome back to Global Business Europe. The markets in the United States have reopened after Monday's public holiday for President's Day. Let's talk to our correspondent, Mitch McCann. Mitch, airline stocks very much in focus this week.
Yeah, that's certainly right. The airlines have been going through a very unsettled period at the moment, mostly because of a number of high-profile crashes or accidents. After yesterday's incident in Toronto, Delta Airlines shares were down more than 1% this morning, while Southwest Airlines shares are down around 0.25% after the company announced it would be cutting 15% of its workforce in an attempt to cut costs. The company's chief executive said, "We are at a pivotal moment as we transform Southwest Airlines into a leaner, faster and more agile organisation." There have been positive signs more generally at the opening of the New York stock market this morning for the S&P indices, while the Dow Jones and Nasdaq were down, but only slightly, relatively unchanged from last Friday. This follows a strong week for the markets last week. The Dow gained 0.6%, the S&P 500 was up 1.5% last week, and the Nasdaq had a great week. It was up 2.6%, and it's reported much of those gains last week came after Donald Trump's announcement around reciprocal tariffs. Now, it wasn't the fact that he announced these tariffs or that it was going to happen. It was that he didn't give specifics around these tariffs. He didn't say which countries would be impacted or what rates would be set for these tariffs, instead holding off while the officials work on how those tariffs are going to happen. Another important point to keep a close eye on this week is the high number of layoffs coming from Donald Trump and Elon Musk's DOGE department, the Department of Government Efficiency. It's reported nearly 4,000 workers in Washington, D.C. have filed unemployment insurance since Donald Trump was sworn in. And in recent days, we've seen protests across the country with people frustrated with the power being given to Elon Musk and this department. Some held signs during President's Day yesterday here in the US that read "No Kings" on President's Day. Well, it's reported nearly 1,000 people marched in Boston chanting "Elon Musk has to go." So pressure building towards Elon Musk and at this Department of Government Efficiency.
Well, let's stay with Mr. Musk because he's unveiled his company's new flagship AI chatbot model. Tell us more.
Yeah, well, Grok is a conversational chatbot. It's developed by Elon Musk's startup xAI, and it can be found on X, which of course is formerly known as Twitter. Now, Musk has rolled out the latest version of Grok, which is being called Grok 3, and it will be available this morning for premium X users. Musk has claimed that the new Grok 3 model can outperform its AI competitors like OpenAI, which runs ChatGPT, as well as the Chinese-made DeepSeek platform, which we've talked about a lot in recent weeks. It's been the source of a high amount of discussion. Now, speaking about Grok 3, Elon Musk said we're continually improving the models every day, and literally within 24 hours you will see improvements. And today's rollout comes only days after Elon Musk led a $97 billion bid to take over OpenAI, a company he helped start, but ultimately that bid was rejected.
Mitch, thank you for that. Good to see you. Our correspondent, Mitch McCann.
Artificial intelligence could transform China's economy. We got a glimpse of the possibilities when DeepSeek released its AI app last month. It surged to the top of the download charts. But China's AI sector is much more than just one app. Our correspondent Michael Murillier explains.
China's AI sector is like a brain. It's learning, developing and producing results, sometimes in the blink of an eye. We saw that with DeepSeek, the AI assistant that came out last month. But Chinese AI is deeper than DeepSeek. The industry has different parts that do different things, but they're also connected in all sorts of ways, just like a brain. The sector now has roughly 4,500 businesses. Some are big names and they're doing big things. Tech giant Baidu looks set to release a new AI model later this year. It's also shaking things up with its chatbot Ernie. The bot had 13 million active users in January. That's about a third of DeepSeek's user base. But last June, it was China's most used app for generative AI. Baidu is now hoping to drive growth by offering the bot for free in April. And speaking of driving, it's also building AI into its Apollo Go service, which provides robo-taxis that drive themselves. Meanwhile, e-commerce firm Alibaba is teaming up with Apple. That deal means Alibaba will provide AI services for Apple iPhones sold in China. But the big brands are also helping smaller companies. Baidu's platform, for example, offered more than 50 models or templates at the end of last year. It also has toolchain software that allows developers to tailor each model for specific tasks. This is known as MaaS, or Model as a Service. It's a system designed to remove barriers. In other words, developers don't spend time and money building models from scratch. Some firms are offering pre-packaged AI solutions as well as cloud computing. Huawei is one example. It says it slashed the time it takes to make systems that train AI models. So, a project that used to take 5 months now takes just 1. And that's important because AI tools don't generate revenue during training. The faster they can learn, the better. And let's not forget, the stakes are high. Research firm McKinsey says by 2030, China's AI sector could add $600 billion to its economy each year. So there is massive potential. And it all starts with brain power.
Neil Lawrence is DeepMind Professor of Machine Learning at the University of Cambridge. Thanks for coming on Global Business Europe. We've got lots to talk about, but let's start with this. Why did China's AI startup DeepSeek send such shockwaves through global tech?
It's an interesting question, and my main answer was because tech had swallowed its own hype in terms of what I think of as AGI vaporware, and that the moat around this AGI vaporware was enormous investment in compute. And what DeepSeek showed is that through agility and clever engineering and good organization, you could compete with the very best without spending enormous amounts of money.
Well, Goldman Sachs expects Chinese stocks to attract $200 billion and rise by as much as 19% this year because of the country's adoption of AI technologies, including DeepSeek. Where is China in the global AI race?
So I always find this term funny, race. What are we actually racing for? And, you know, this is part of the AGI vaporware sort of mantra, that we're somehow racing to achieve this state of AGI. Look, each country has to decide where it wants to be. Now, undoubtedly, China is a leading force in this technology, but different countries are doing different things. Singapore is one of the leading countries in deploying the technology. So I think there's a real danger across the world in this obsession with the notion of race, rather than stepping back and saying, this is a transformative technology. There's no such thing as artificial general intelligence, but this is a transformative technology, and it can take our societies to some extraordinarily good places or some extraordinarily bad places. And by not focusing on that question, we're in danger of the race leading to somewhere that none of us want to be.
But do you think that DeepSeek maybe opened things up a little bit? I mean, I wonder which other countries you expect might now dip their toe or enter the AI world with gusto.
No, I think it's been a tremendous restorative to what was an appallingly polluted debate, that a smaller company has been able to show such performance. It's given an enormous amount of encouragement to companies in Europe, or even smaller companies in the US, that they can also compete against this narrative, which is basically a sort of Silicon Valley, Wall Street combined narrative, that you have to be enormous to succeed. So I think it's tremendously exciting. Now, I think where the next one comes from, well, I hope they're coming from a diversity of places. We've seen France has made great investments. Germany also has a lot of startups, and I'd love something to come from the UK.
What about Africa? What about India?
So that's a great question. And actually, I've spent the last 10 years working with colleagues in Africa, an organization called Data Science Africa, which is building technologies developed on the continent. Now, there's lots of diversity of applications that can be used there, but what we really want is a world where people who have the problems can solve their own problems, rather than the world we're being sold on, which is one where a few companies deploy these solutions for the benefit of everyone. That has not worked. We are already in a difficult position with a concentration of power, with very few digital companies. And what this technology does offer is the possibility that everyone can interact with their machines in the ways that in the past only software engineers were able to do.
Okay, so you're saying this could make it much more universal, but then I'm thinking that we're going to have some global AI governance. We're going to have some regulation. What can we expect?
Yeah, and I think that's the really tough bit. We've seen this enormous swing from the summits to one with this sort of almost bizarre paranoid creation of what I think of as sort of the AI bogeyman at the UK AI Safety Summit, to sort of enormous AI boosterism in France. And perhaps that's understandable. Perhaps as politicians get to grips with the technology that they themselves don't understand, they're going to swing between these two extremes. But what I hope is more rapidly we can get to an understanding of, look, this technology is transformative, it has great potential, and there are great pitfalls associated with it. But unfortunately, a lot of those debates are not going to happen under the glare of an international spotlight. They're going to happen in the background. And one of the things I'm nervous about is more division within the research community, less access to these technologies for universities and other civil society groups, because it's those groups that will develop these technologies in the beneficial directions.
Neil Lawrence at the University of Cambridge, thank you very much.
Thanks, Julia.
Beijing says it's committed to creating the right environment for private firms to flourish in China. President Xi Jinping has been meeting business leaders to encourage them to help drive economic growth. The private sector accounts for over 60% of China's GDP.
Australia's central bank has cut interest rates for the first time since 2020, when it dropped its key rate to a record low during the pandemic. The Reserve Bank of Australia has reduced its cash rate by 25 basis points to 4.1%. The decision was in line with market expectations as inflationary pressures soften.
Europe imported nearly 20% less natural gas last year. That's the lowest since the pandemic. The UK, Belgium and Spain saw the biggest reductions in LNG imports. The Institute for Energy Economics and Financial Analysis reported a drop in Europe's gas purchases from the United States, but a rise in imports from Russia. This despite efforts to reduce European reliance on Russian gas.
UK wage growth has risen sharply, beating expectations. Average weekly earnings were up by close to 6% in the 3 months to the end of December. Unemployment, though, remained unchanged at just under 4.5%. Business surveys have suggested widespread job cuts could be on the way after tax rises in the autumn budget.
The car makers Renault and Geely have signed a deal to produce zero and low-emission vehicles in Brazil. The partnership by the French auto giant and Chinese multinational taps into new markets amid rising trade tensions. The new deal gives Geely, which owns brands like Volvo and Polestar, greater access to South America's largest economy.
China's Chamber of Commerce to the EU has set up a working group to discuss EU tariffs on electric vehicles. Beijing's ambassador to Portugal has called for both sides to drop barriers and focus on economic cooperation. The EU has imposed tariffs of up to 35% on Chinese-made EVs, claiming they benefit from unfair government subsidies.
And we've been investigating the rise of China's EV industry for a new documentary. Here's a taster.
Today, China makes 2 out of every 3 of the world's electric vehicles.
The arguments about whether the future is electric are basically non-existent anymore.
What seemed like a blink of an eye, things changed.
The Chinese, they have a 30% cost competitive edge in their sourcing compared to ours.
We must defend ourselves against unfair practices.
We do oppose tariffs. We don't think that's the right measure.
A presidential spokesman in Argentina has hit out against allegations that bribes were involved in a cryptocurrency scandal.
President Javier Milei has insisted he acted in good faith when he promoted the crypto coin Libra before it crashed. He now faces an investigation and calls for his impeachment after investors lost millions of dollars. Our correspondent Joel Richards reports.
Argentina's President Javier Milei faces his strongest political test to date this week after he endorsed a cryptocurrency that crashed and lost millions of dollars. On Friday night, President Milei posted on X and Instagram about Libra, a crypto token he wrote would encourage economic growth for small businesses and startups in Argentina. The market capitalization of the token quickly reached $4.5 billion before collapsing on Friday night. Milei deleted his original post hours later. Argentina's FinTech Association says Libra's collapse may have been caused by a so-called rug pull, a cryptocurrency scam where a company abandons the digital currency it developed and absconds with the investors' money. Reports place the amount insiders earned at over $100 million. The president's office official statement over the weekend stated Milei was not involved in the development of this cryptocurrency. Milei deleted his posts and said he was unaware of the project's details. But Milei has met on various occasions with people linked to the project. The cryptocurrency's value had soared to around $5 a token. By Monday morning, it had collapsed to mere fractions of a cent. There have been calls from opposition parties to start an impeachment process. But that is unlikely to progress because the opposition does not have enough votes in Congress to approve this. However, doubts remain over the legality of a president promoting a scheme such as this. Joel Richards, CGTN, Buenos Aires.
You're watching CGTN. Still ahead. Lebanon warns Israeli troop presence constitutes an occupation. Israel says its soldiers will remain in strategic locations.
Events have consequences. Words create impact.
Unprecedented scenes that we saw.
The cleanup operation is now well and truly underway.
Parts of southern Europe remain in a state of emergency.
Context gives meaning. People make history.
Far more than 1,000 people have come here today.
But authorities are still on high alert.
So now we've actually become the border on this road.
A complex world demands a comprehensive view.
But with the cleanup efforts more or less under control,
the economic impact is bound to ripple across the country.
There's plastic pollution everywhere.
Because the world today matters for your world tomorrow.
This is the living area of the crew.
The focus is firmly on future technologies.
Well, this is something completely different.
The world today, every day on CGTN.
Peking opera, or Jinju, is a classic form of Chinese performance art, combining the music of Chinese instruments, costume, face painting, literature, and history. It arose in Beijing over 200 years ago during the Mid-Qing dynasty. There are four main characters: the Sheng, who are gentlemen, Dan, who are women, Jing, who are men of strong character, and Chou, who are clowns. Each character has a different age, gender, and social status. Performers use four main skills, namely song, speech, dance acting, and combat. And the highest aim of performers is to put beauty into every motion. Today, Peking opera is regarded as a quintessential form of Chinese culture.
Hello, welcome back to Global Business Europe with Jamie Owen and Juliet Mann. Our top stories: Russia and the United States agree on more talks to end the conflict in Ukraine and potential economic cooperation after meeting in Saudi Arabia.
Investors in Europe's biggest economy, Germany, show signs of optimism, but so much hangs on this weekend's election.
And how artificial intelligence could turbocharge China's economy, the very real opportunities beyond the success of DeepSeek.
China's Foreign Minister Wang Yi has told the UN Security Council that China supports all efforts for peace in Ukraine.
Chairing the ministerial meeting of the 15-member body, Wang also told envoys that Gaza and the West Bank are not a bargaining chip in political trade-offs.
Our correspondent Jodie Jacobs is in New York. Hi there, Jodie. So, difficult days for a debate on the prospects for peace when the world couldn't be more disunited.
Indeed, and Tuesday's meeting here in New York, of course, comes at a time of those significant geopolitical tensions among some of the major powers, especially following the return to the White House of Donald Trump. Now, Trump holds the skeptical view that multilateralism isn't really a thing, having already, since assuming office, announced the withdrawal of the U.S. from key UN agencies and pacts like the World Health Organization and the Paris Climate Agreement. China's foreign minister telling the council members today that he, of course, fully supports multilateralism and fully supports efforts for peace in the Ukraine. Now, these talks are also being spearheaded by the United States. China's Foreign Minister Wang Yi also adding that Gaza, as you said, is not a bargaining chip and a political sort of trade-off, insisting that everyone seated around the Security Council table should ensure that the effective implementation of international law. He says that everybody should reject double standards and the selective application of that international law. He also told the Security Council that it is entrusted with authority and that should be upheld by all countries. Let's take a listen.
Members cannot just sit by and watch multilateral institutions become dysfunctional and ineffective due to their own failure to cooperate. The Security Council must rise above narrow-minded geopolitical considerations, champion the spirit of solidarity and cooperation, fulfill its duties conferred by the UN Charter, and effectively play its role for the maintenance of international peace and security.
Now, of course, as you say, this comes at a time when there's all of these geopolitical tensions. Now, Wang Yi also posed several questions to member states. What can be done to enhance the unity of the Security Council to help better fulfill, of course, its primary responsibility, that being of international peace and security? Now, he called on members of the Security Council to overcome its divisions that are blocking the effective action for peace, saying that the eyes of the world remains on the Security Council to act in meaningful ways to end these conflicts, saying that China will spearhead this and ensure that that takes place. Now, today's council meeting is a signature event for China here in New York, and we will see at least 98 countries at the United Nations participate in today's event that is, of course, spearheaded by China. Back to you in studio.
Jodie Jacobs in New York. Thank you very much.
Lebanon is seeking support from the United Nations to compel Israel to withdraw its military to internationally recognized borders. The deadline for Israeli troop withdrawal has expired, but Israel says it will maintain troop presence in strategic areas.
Thousands of people were displaced from Israel and more than 1 million people fled Lebanon in the conflict between Hezbollah and Israel. A ceasefire was agreed in November.
The Lebanese army is fully ready and prepared to assume its duties along recognized international borders in a way that preserves national sovereignty, protects the citizens of southern Lebanon, and guarantees their security and stability. The government of Lebanon will constitute any Israeli presence in any inch of its territory as an occupation, with all the legal ramifications that arise from this under international law.
Our correspondent Jonathan Regev is in Tel Aviv.
There are 5 specific points which are right on the Israel-Lebanon border, but on the Lebanese side, these are strategic points high above the ground, and they overlook both Israel and Lebanon. What Israel is saying is that if Israel withdraws and until the Lebanese army can prove that it can actually curb Hezbollah and not allow the Shia organization back, Israel simply wants to keep a presence in those very strategic places. They overlook Israel, meaning if Hezbollah is there, they could quite easily target both Israeli communities and the Israeli army. And they also overlook Lebanon, meaning that the Israeli presence there could help Israel monitor whatever is happening inside Lebanese territory, both what the Lebanese army is doing and, more importantly, what Hezbollah is doing. And regarding the conflict, yes, there's always the potential for it to escalate. It will most probably not happen until this coming Sunday. Why so? On Sunday, Hezbollah is planning to hold the funeral of its former leader, Hassan Nasrallah. It's meant to be a major event in Beirut, and Hezbollah will surely want to keep things calm and quiet until that. after Sunday, anything can happen when it comes to Israel and Hezbollah. There's always potential for escalation, especially in such a case.
Jonathan, Israel says it's establishing a government body for the voluntary departures of Palestinians from Gaza.
Yes, there are many parts in the Israeli government, especially the far-right elements, which were very enthusiastic to embrace the Trump plan. And as far as they're concerned, and the people that are holding a ministerial post, Israel should actually prepare a plan to facilitate that, to make sure it is happening. Is that plan even realistic? I'm not sure everybody in Israel thinks so, not sure everybody in the Trump administration thinks so, but once the U.S. president made it public, some elements in the Israeli government are already setting up plans for this to happen. Way before that, we're still in the first phase of the ceasefire, and just in the last hour, confirmation both from Israel and Hamas has come to the fact that the 6 remaining living hostages will be freed this coming Saturday. The 6 remaining hostages in the first phase of the ceasefire, instead of doing it in two separate times, 2 separate Saturdays. It is meant to happen, all of it, this coming Saturday. 2 days prior to that, on Thursday, Hamas is set to release the bodies of 4 Israelis. So the first phase is progressing, getting very close to its end. Also, we just heard from Qatari officials saying that negotiations for the second phase have not begun yet. So, of course, Israelis are very happy to see more and more hostages coming back, whether alive or even if it is dead bodies. Will the agreement go on? Will there be a second phase? A lot of people are skeptic about that.
Egypt's foreign ministry says the country will host an emergency Arab summit on March the 4th to discuss the future of Gaza.
Cairo is spearheading the proposal for the reconstruction and future governance of the enclave to counter President Trump's plan to forcibly resettle Palestinians. The United Nations says the humanitarian needs in Gaza are overwhelming.
Our correspondent Rami Al-Magari reports.
Humanitarian situation that is getting desperate by the time, with no breakthrough is upcoming or foreseen, and in the time being, actually. Today there have been reports about entry of some machineries, heavy machineries, and some tents and mobile homes, but these reports are not confirmed, and nothing has entered the territory so far up to this moment, enter the territory to relieve the Palestinians who are in desperate need for the repair of their damaged homes and damaged streets and roads in Gaza because of the war. This is a humanitarian crisis that is actually looming in the near future, unless this humanitarian aid enter with the capacity they have been agreed, that it has been agreed on during the truce talks between Israel and Hamas, mediated by Egypt and Qatar. Recently there have been reports about less truckloads of aid entering the territory, about maybe less than 200 compared with the 500 agreed on daily basis. Still the situation is desperate in terms of the food and in terms actually of the reconstruction material, of the repair efforts by the local authorities here in Gaza. The municipalities, for example, work with low capacities, beyond their own capacities before the war, because of the fact that they are now able to remove some of the solid garbage from place to another, because of the fact that there are no machineries to remove them, no spaces in Gaza left for these garbage. Tens of thousands of tons of this solid garbage are accumulated in the streets of Gaza, while the Israeli army is stationed to the east of the Gaza Strip, where these solid garbage has been disposed prior to the eruption of the Israeli war on the Gaza Strip that has been mainly targeting the Islamist Hamas party.
You're watching CGTN. Still ahead, the NBA's All-Star Game showcases some of the Basketball League's best players.
Chinese calligraphy, or Shufa, is a traditional visual art form that involves writing Chinese characters in a stylized way. It is thought to have originated alongside the earliest Chinese characters discovered to date, namely oracle bone inscriptions from the Shang dynasty, that's 16th to 11th century BC, in Anyang, Henan province. There are 5 major styles of script: regular,
楷书,
running,
行书,
cursive,
草书,
clerical,
隶书,
and seal.
篆书.
4 essential pieces of equipment are used: brush,
笔,
ink,
墨,
paper,
纸,
and inkstone.
砚.
Collectively, these are known as the 4 treasures of the study. From brush inclination and direction to the speed of writing, every twist and turn of the wrist is calculated. Today, Chinese calligraphy is a highly valued traditional art form, for it is more than just writing. It is a living heritage.
Welcome back to Global Business Europe. Humanoid robots are on the march as tech giants and startups pour more time and money into their development.
China's innovation hub Shenzhen is bringing together leading companies and real-world applications to put them through their paces. Our correspondent Dai Kai reports.
Catching a tennis ball, popping up a soda, even doing backflips. What once seemed like science fiction is now becoming reality. Here in Shenzhen, China's tech hub, the humanoid robotics industry is booming.
The PM01 here can do all sorts of stuff. For example, we just asked it for a favor to film a footage for us, and he said yes.
Of course, it didn't actually make the decision, its designer did. To understand more, I visited the company behind it.
We use end-to-end neural network skill, and we use a deep reinforcement learning. Then we leverage everything that we need from the drawing side and also from the motion side. Then they can come across together much more easier.
When I give it a little nudge, it doesn't just lose balance or fall over. It instantly knows what happened and quickly adjusts itself. The staff here told me it's a subconscious reaction.
That quick response is thanks to balanced algorithms and cutting-edge hardware design. And by making their technology open source, the company believes they can speed up progress by getting more players involved.
SA01, from day one that we launched that, we tell everybody this is open source. From the learning process, from the deep reinforcement learning coding, and also from the deployment coding. The reason why behind is we want to lower the cost for all the institution and the university.
These humanoid robots have made huge leaps in just a few years, thanks to AI-driven growth. And it's not just one company in town. There are other market players like Ooptech, a Shenzhen-based firm listed on the Hong Kong Stock Exchange. It made headlines when its flagship robots took center stage at their IPO in late 2023. Still, the road ahead isn't easy. More standardized regulations are needed to integrate humanoid robots into existing systems.
After ChatGPT, humanoid robots are the next big breakthrough. They're already integrating into small-scale production and daily life, but key challenges remain, like solving core algorithms and improving critical components. Those are the bottlenecks we need to break through.
A solid start. Companies like Engine AI says much of its success at the moment comes from Shenzhen's thriving tech ecosystem. Here, some of the world's biggest tech firms are just blocks away, making it easy to team up and get things done fast.
Over the past few decades, the city of Shenzhen has never been short of miracles, and humanoid robots are just one of the latest innovations that capture everyone's attention. It might still take some time before they're everywhere and entirely hands-free. But the demand is there, so is the technology to make it happen. It'll be exciting to see how fast humanoids advance here in the Greater Bay Area and how many boundaries they're going to push in the next 3 to 5 years. 大概CGTN, Shenzhen.
Huawei is celebrating 20 years working in Ireland. These have been rather challenging times for the company, under fire in Europe and the United States over concerns about threats to national security.
US sanctions have hit its international presence, but the company's bouncing back. Our correspondent Ken Brown spoke to Calvin Land, the CEO of Huawei Ireland.
Huawei, we start our business from 2004. So I bring this small gadget. So if you are old enough, you will know what's that. The 3G dongle. That moment, Huawei sells this 3G dongle among the country. Nowadays, we serve like approximately 3.5 million people in Ireland, include 5G, digital power, green energy. So we almost nearly serve more than half population of the Ireland.
Right now there's been a surge of Chinese companies who have also come here to Ireland. Why is Ireland a good place to do business for multinational companies?
I think obviously they have three reasons. First one is a grow and enough talent pool for the STEM graduate. I mean among the 20 to 29 years old, such segment. Secondly, we have a very pro and stable government policies encourage investment. Third one is the only English-speaking country in the EU, and we use as a gateway to access United Kingdom, EU, and US markets.
I think most people know of Huawei's phones, but Huawei is also hugely involved in renewables, something that people might not know so much about.
No, actually, we have quite ambition to serve also Europe and Ireland, the government ambition to the climate change target. So we immerse hugely about all such kind of smartphone, telecom equipment, and we leverage our technology from that domain to the renewable energy.
That's great. What other technologies do we have to look forward to coming from Huawei?
I bring the latest triple foldable phone from Huawei. I think it's not a secret. This phone already on sale on the market for 3 months or 4 months. It's quite a unique product, very nice. But we're gonna release more new idea, new product, and new business showcase in Mobile World Congress.
So what about the future of Huawei as a company and its relationship with Ireland, its relationship with China also?
Like I always say, I can be the bridge for the East and the West. Last years, I'm hosting quite a lot delegation from China to visit Ireland to seek more opportunity for the investment. I would like to say a lot done, more to do.
So the future looks bright for Ireland and Huawei.
True. Thank you.
Calvin, thank you so much. Real pleasure.
The NBA's All-Star Game showcases some of the Basketball League's best players. And this year, it featured a new format with more teams and more players competing for the coveted All-Star title.
One key to success is the rise in the number of international stars taking part. Our correspondent Mark New reports.
NBA All-Star Weekend brought the world's biggest basketball stars to the San Francisco Bay Area to showcase their skills. Dazzling three-point shooting is exactly why the Golden State Warriors' Steph Curry won All-Star Game MVP. But perhaps just as big a win for the sport is its international influence. Superstar Kyrie Irving interacted with fans in his Chinese-branded Anta shoes. The NBA's reigning MVP, Nikola Jokic, played in his new signature shoe, the Joker 1, made by Chinese brand 361 Degrees.
I'm coming to China this year, so hopefully I'm going to meet some good people and good food, learn about the cultures.
Two of the tallest NBA players hail from outside the U.S., Chinese-Canadian Zach Edey and Frenchman Victor Wembanyama. This NBA season, there's a record-tying amount of players born outside the United States in the league. At the start of the season, there were 125 international players from 43 different countries. That's about 23% of the league. That includes this year's #1 pick, French player Zachary Risacher, who is just 19 years old.
I'm young, but I had to, step up and be a man at real soon, across the ocean to achieve my dream, to do what I love, and it comes with certain sacrifices.
The global game could potentially even impact NBA rules. The league's commissioner recently floated the idea of shortening its games by 8 minutes to make it more like the international game. This year, sports analysts have also heavily debated rule changes that would cut down the number of three-point attempts.
Do you think it should become more closer to the international game, or do you like the way it is?
I mean, I feel like other leagues should be chasing us. You know what I'm saying? We're the best league in the world.
Ironically, Atlanta Hawks point guard Trae Young ended up being placed on an all-star team where more than half the players were born outside the U.S.
The international players, a lot of them who are the best players over here were pros early over there, and I had a chance to really learn early over there, and the fundamentals, they pick up those things faster over there.
If there's one thing that all-stars like Young can fully agree on, it's that the globalization of the game has helped elevate the competition and skill level to an all-time high. Mark New, CGTN, San Francisco.
The headlines again. Russia and the United States agree on more talks to end the conflict in Ukraine and potential economic cooperation after meeting in Saudi Arabia.
It's Europe's biggest economy, and investors in Germany show signs of optimism that so much hangs on this weekend's election.
And how artificial intelligence could turbocharge China's economy, the very real opportunities beyond the success of DeepSeek.
That's it for Global Business Europe. Thanks for watching.
Coming up next on CGTN, it's Africa Live. We'll see you again tomorrow, same time, same place. From all of the team in London, it's goodbye.
Goodbye.